Welcome to Domain 2. We just spent Domain 1 on architecture, on the controls, on the principles. Now we turn the lights off and look at who is actually trying to break in. This is threat actors and motivations, and it is one of the most testable objectives on the whole exam because if you can name the actor, you can predict the attack. Picture this: mid-sized law firm. A senior partner notices their case files for a major merger have leaked. The board panics. They assume nation state. They hire a top-tier incident response retainer. The forensics team flies in, parks at the firm for 2 weeks, runs full memory captures, hunts for persistent implants, looks for an APT. They find nothing. No custom malware. No zero-day. No command and control. What they finally find in the building access logs is a paralegal who badged out at 11 p.m. on a Sunday with a personal USB drive. The threat the firm prepared for was the wrong threat. It was not Russia. It was a guy 15 feet from the printer. That is the lesson of 2.1. You have to know all the actors because the one that gets you is rarely the one in the news. Let me rank the actors the way I actually rank them in my head. Top of the threat pyramid is the nation state. These are government-sponsored or government-directed crews. Sophistication is the highest you will see. Resources are effectively unlimited. They can sit on a zero-day for years, write custom malware for one specific target, and run a campaign across multiple countries. The defining word for them is persistent. The exam term is APT, Advanced Persistent Threat. The persistent piece is the one that matters. They are not in for a smash and grab. They want to live on your network for months, sometimes years, because their goal is espionage, intellectual property theft, or pre-positioning for cyber warfare. Lazarus Group out of DPRK, APT-28 Fancy Bear out of Russia, APT-41 out of China. Targets are defense contractors, utilities, financial systems, healthcare, government. They love supply chain attacks because they get one foothold and reach 1,000 victims. If a question describes a long-term, undetected government-sponsored intrusion, the answer is nation-state every single time. Now flip to the bottom of the skill ladder. The unskilled attacker. CompTIA's official term is script kiddie, and yes, that is the label they will use on the exam. Sophistication is low. Resources are minimal. They run tools other people wrote. Metasploit modules, automated scanners, exploit kits, and most of them could not explain what the tool actually does. The motivation is bragging rights, curiosity, notoriety. Here is the trap though, do not laugh them off. Automated tools are powerful. A script kiddie running a public exploit framework against 10,000 random IPs will absolutely catch the unpatched ones. They are not targeting you, they are spraying the internet, and if you are exposed, you are caught. Next up, hacktivists. Sophistication is low to moderate. Resources are crowdsourced. The motivation is the one that makes them different, political or ideological. They are not after money. Anonymous, lolsec, the entire archetype. Their tactics are DDoS, website defacement, doxing, and dumping data. Success for them is measured in headlines, not bank transfers. They will leak your customer database not to sell it, but to embarrass you. Targets are governments, corporations they consider unethical, law enforcement. On the exam, if you see philosophical, political, or message-driven attacks, that is the hacktivist column. Now, insider threats, and this is the one I want you to spend extra time on because this is where most companies actually get hurt. An insider already has legitimate access. That is what makes them so hard to detect. There is no perimeter to breach. There is no exotic exploit. There is just somebody using the access you already gave them. The exam splits insiders 3 ways. Malicious, they are intentionally exfiltrating data, sabotaging systems, or helping an outside attacker. Unintentional, they click the phishing link or misconfigured a server. Negligent, they know the policy, they just ignore it. The classic password taped to the monitor. The classic exam scenario is the disgruntled employee on their way out the door, copying IP to a personal drive on their last day. Common, devastating, and almost always the one the board did not see coming. Your defenses here are least privilege, DLP tools, user behavior analytics, and separation of duties. Insiders are the hardest threat to detect. Memorize that line. Then we have organized crime. Think of them as a business. They have developers, ops teams, customer support. Yes, customer support, because if you are a ransomware victim trying to negotiate, you are talking to a help desk. Sophistication is moderate to high. Resources are substantial because they fund themselves through the proceeds. The motivation is money. Always money. Their lineup is ransomware, business email compromise, credential theft, fraud. The big innovation of the last few years is ransomware as a service, where a core developer team writes the malware and sells access to affiliates who do the actual breaches. Revel, Conti, Lockbit. They typically operate from jurisdictions that do not cooperate with Western law enforcement. On the exam, if the motivation is financial gain, especially involving ransomware or BEC, that is organized crime. And then there is shadow IT, which CompTIA lists in this objective, even though it is not really a malicious actor. Shadow IT is unauthorized technology used inside the organization without IT's knowledge. Personal Dropbox. Some random SaaS app sales picked up on a free trial. A developer spinning up his own AWS VM because procurement is too slow. The intent is almost never malicious. The intent is convenience. Productivity. Frustration with restrictive approved tools lists. But the risk is real because IT cannot patch, monitor, or protect what it cannot see. Data goes to unsanctioned services, and now you have a compliance violation. The line for the exam is, shadow IT creates unmanaged attack surface that other actors can exploit. Let's talk attributes because the exam loves to ask you to compare actors across multiple dimensions. 3 attributes matter. Internal versus external. Is the actor inside or outside the perimeter? Because insiders bypass perimeter controls and externals have to break them. Resources and funding. How much money and personnel can they bring to bear? Because that determines sophistication and how long they can sustain an attack. Capability and sophistication. What tools and techniques can they actually use? From off-the-shelf commodity exploits all the way up to custom 0 days. A nation-state scores high on all 3. A script kiddie scores low on all 3. Anybody else falls somewhere in between, and the test questions live in that in-between space. Now motivations. CompTIA lists about 10 of these, and you need to map each one back to actors. Data exfiltration, that is nation-states, organized crime, insiders. Espionage is primarily nation-state, with insiders as a secondary path. Service disruption is hacktivists, nation-states for cyber warfare scenarios, and organized crime when they use DDoS for extortion. Blackmail and extortion is organized crime. Ransomware, sextortion, DDoS-for-ransom. Financial gain is the criminal column. Philosophical or political motivation is the hacktivist column. Ethical motivation, like whistleblowing, is a special case of insider. Somebody who believes they are exposing wrongdoing for the public good. Revenge is the disgruntled insider. Disruption or chaos is your script kiddie or low-tier hacktivist. And cyber warfare is exclusively nation-state, framed as an act of war between countries. The exam will sometimes give you the motivation and ask you for the actor. Sometimes it will give you the actor and ask for the motivation. Practice both directions. Here is a question pattern I have seen 100 times. Scenario: a foreign government is suspected of stealing trade secrets from a defense contractor over a multi-year campaign. Which actor? Nation state, APT, easy. Next pattern: a small group brings down a corporation's website to protest its environmental record. Which actor? Hacktivist, ideological motivation. Next, a former system administrator is found to have left a script that deletes user accounts the day after he was terminated. That is a malicious insider planting a logic bomb, and the motivation is revenge. Next, somebody mass mails ransomware demanding payment in cryptocurrency. That is organized crime, financial motivation. Once you can pattern match like that, the exam questions stop feeling tricky and start feeling formulaic. One scenario I want to leave you with, because anyone who has worked an actual incident has seen this. Mid-sized financial firm, strange outbound traffic at 3 a.m. from a junior analyst's workstation. The SOC is convinced it is an APT. They start writing the press release in their heads. They escalate, bring in outside IR, full forensics. The truth comes out a day later. The analyst had installed a personal Cryptominer on the corporate laptop because his electric bill at home was getting expensive. Not nation state, not even malicious in the corporate espionage sense, just an employee misusing assets. The lesson is the same as the law firm story. You have to know all the actors because the simplest explanation usually wins, and assuming nation state every time is how you burn down your IR budget on the wrong threat. Let me give you another scenario the exam loves. A CISO at a regional bank gets a board-level question. We saw a news story about a foreign intelligence service stealing data from banks of our size. Are we their target? The right answer is possibly, depending on what data we hold. But the more honest answer is, even if you are not their primary target, you are likely an opportunistic one. Nation-states are picky about their highest value targets, but they also do broad collection on industries adjacent to their interests. Banks, defense contractors, energy companies, healthcare research, telecommunications providers, the entire critical infrastructure list are within scope for at least one nation-state at any given time. The exam will sometimes hide a nation-state question inside a critical infrastructure scenario. If a question describes a long-running, undetected, government-sponsored campaign against a utility, defense contractor, or a healthcare research firm, your answer is nation-state and the term is APT. Now another pattern. The crowdsourced denial of service against a corporation that just had a public scandal. Volunteers from around the world download a tool, point it at the corporate website, and overwhelm it for a few hours. No money demanded, no data stolen, just a public statement and a crashed homepage. That is hacktivism in textbook form. Compare that to the same shape of attack, DDoS, but with a ransom demand attached. That second version is organized crime running a DDoS-for-ransom operation. Same vector, different actor, different motivation. The exam separates them by motivation every time. One more on insiders because the volume of insider questions on the exam is higher than you would expect. 3 subtypes again. The malicious insider deliberately exfiltrates data, sabotages systems, or assists an outside attacker. The unintentional insider clicks the link, misconfigures the bucket, sends the spreadsheet to the wrong distribution group. The negligent insider knows the policy and ignores it. The password on the monitor, the laptop unlocked in the open coffee shop, the SaaS app stood up without IT approval. All 3 are insider threats on the exam. The mitigation split. Malicious insider, least privilege, separation of duties, UBA, behavioral analytics, DLP. Unintentional, training and configuration enforcement. Negligent, policy enforcement, audits, and consequences. If a question asks for the hardest threat to detect, the answer is insider because the access is already legitimate and traditional perimeter controls do not see them. Here's one more scenario worth your time because this is the question shape that catches even prepared candidates. A retailer's web application gets defaced overnight. Homepage replaced with a political slogan. No data exfiltration detected, no ransom note. Twitter accounts associated with a Hacktivist collective claim responsibility. The next morning, the CEO wants to know who attacked. The exam answer is Hacktivist, with the giveaways being the political slogan, the public claim of responsibility, and the absence of financial demand. Compare that to a similar attack where the homepage is replaced with a ransom note demanding cryptocurrency to restore service. Same surface, defacement, but the ransom flips the answer to organized crime. Same surface again, where the attack is part of a multi-month campaign with quiet exfiltration of customer PII and credit card data, and the defacement is just a noisy ending. That third version is organized crime running a long-tail data theft operation, sometimes with ransomware as the closing move. The shadow IT story I want you to internalize. Marketing director at a mid-sized firm cannot get budget approval for a SaaS analytics tool through the official IT procurement process. Procurement says 90 days. Marketing director needs the tool by Friday. He pulls out a corporate credit card, signs up for a free trial of an analytics service, configures it to ingest customer data through an API, and gets to work. 3 months later, the analytics vendor has a breach. The marketing director's credentials and the customer data feed are in the dump. Now the firm has a data breach involving customer PII that IT did not even know was happening, going through a vendor IT did not vet, in a service IT cannot audit. That is shadow IT as an attack surface generator. Not malicious in intent, catastrophic in impact. The fix is shorter procurement cycles, an approved vendor list that actually reflects what marketing teams need, and CASB-style monitoring that catches unauthorized cloud service signups. On the exam, shadow IT is not a malicious actor. It is a vulnerability creator that other actors can exploit. Quick word on attributes again, because the exam keeps coming back to them. Internal versus external matters. because the controls that catch externals, the perimeter firewall, the VPN gateway, the email filter, almost never trigger on insiders. An external attacker has to make noise getting in. An insider already has the keys. Resources and funding determine whether an actor can sustain a campaign for weeks or has to settle for a one-shot opportunistic exploit. Sophistication and capability determine whether the actor needs commodity off-the-shelf tools or can write a custom zero-day for one specific target. Nation-state, high on all three. Organized crime, high on resources, high on capability, external. Hacktivist, low to moderate on all three, external. Insider, variable on capability, internal access by definition, lower funding but higher access advantage. Script kiddie, low on everything. Match the scenario to the attribute profile, and the actor falls out automatically. Time for the recap, action checklist style. When you sit down at the exam and you see domain 2 questions, here is your bag check. 1. Can you separate nation state from organized crime? Long-term and quiet equals nation state. Loud and money-driven equals organized crime. 2. Can you spot the script kiddie? Off-the-shelf tools, no understanding of what they do. Opportunistic targets. 3. Can you identify the hacktivist? Political or ideological motive, DDoS or defacement, headlines as the goal. 4. Can you spot the insider, all three flavors, and remember the disgruntled employee on last day scenario? 5. Can you place shadow IT as not a malicious actor, but a vulnerability creator? 6. Can you map the 10 motivations back to actors? 7. Can you compare actors across the three attributes, internal versus external, resources, sophistication? If you can do all 7 of those without flinching, you are ready for the actor questions. Next lesson, 2.2, we move from the who to the how. Threat vectors and attack surfaces. Phishing, USB drops, supply chain. Every road an attacker takes to get in. I will see you there.